was a good trip. Yeah.
I saw one of the videos. It was really good.
Yeah, today I saw your video. I mean, like the presentation of Meshery. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's in no small part to your guys' effort. I mean,
Lee, I have a quick question. Like,
Okay.
like a request, I would say. I saw like there is an AWS architecture from you, like for discussion of.
yeah.
Uh, I didn't remember the exact name of that. Like paper trail for AWS architecture. I saw in today in like in Docker. Do we have video of that so that I'm just interested to see like
Oh, so just sort of separate from Meshery, like as a SolarWinds thing?
yeah, yes.
Uh, yeah, let me catch up with you on Slack about that. I'll show you the integration between Docker and Papertrail. As a matter of fact,
Sure, thank you.
yeah, I can show it, but actually Garish wrote it. So
Thank you.
The interest.
okay, so we're gonna have a couple of other folks joining today, which is gonna be great. In the meantime, I'm gonna put the link to the Google Docs. If your name isn't in there, please record it. Also, while we're going, all of you are welcome to take notes, kind of update the document as we go. We are 3 after, so we may as well get going. I expect a couple others to join. Welcome to this week's edition of the Meshery Community Call. So good to have Santosh, Sako, Pavan, Garish. Let me share the meeting minutes. We've got a number of things to cover. Okay, very good. So great. So I think you guys just got done talking about a couple of these things. So, Garish, welcome back from KubeCon. It was a busy last week. The work that you guys have been doing was presented, it was about 5 times. And so there was a main presentation that was given on Wednesday last week. It's too bad Pratik isn't here, or Pranav, because I think that a lot of their efforts were shown. Some of the results were shown. Pavan, I heard you say that you saw the video. Did you guys also get access to the slide? Oh, you know what? I don't think we've published the slides yet. So we should do that. Publish the slides. Is anybody inclined to some of that talk in specific, the one that you guys have seen, and maybe some of the other ones and the slides? We would do well to put those up on the community page, up on the Meshery page, and or into the Meshery docs themselves. So if anybody would like to volunteer to do that, that'd be great. And put on. Could just also be links inside of the READMEs in Git.
I can help.
Nice. Oh, thanks, Sako. Yeah. Good way to get your contributor count up too. So quick and easy. Very good. Garish, do you want to talk about the discussion you had with Prem earlier today on the NSM event?
Sounds good. So essentially, we have one person from Prem's team. So Prem is part of the NSM adapter network service mesh project, and the discussion we had earlier today was actually to discuss on what is the right approach for proceeding with implementing an adapter for NSM, because NSM really is not a L4 to or sorry, L5 to 7 kind of a service mesh. Like, it's a different kind of a mesh, which actually works at a much lower level. So we were actually talking about some of the options. So the call went on for about like 40 minutes, where he actually first introduced me to NSM, and then we then took a look at Meshery's architecture diagram, and we're kind of going over some of the options or potentials. So towards the end, I kind of showcased him one of the current adapters and how it is written. So he actually has taken some points as a food for thought. So he actually said that he will work with the person from his team. Her name is Harshini, and they'll probably have some kind of follow up meetings with us to actually kind of ensure that they are working in the right direction. And also it's also a dual thing that so now that is a very different kind of an adapter that my option or my offering to him was we are willing to support you guys the way you would want us to, is kind of what I told him. So essentially that's kind of where we ended. So he has taken some points. He's going to give it a thought with the team, and then probably come back to us for further discussions.
Nice. Okay. I'm just realizing actually Nick and Eric have joined as well. So we're gonna call them out and make them.
Hey,
hello. Yeah. Hey guys. Hey, nice to have you guys here.
Hey guys.
Sorry, a little late. We were trying to find somewhere to sit. We're out at our company retreat this week, out in Austin, actually in Texas, and they're tearing everything down. So all of the community rooms that we did have, which is there's people shifting boxes and stuff. So sorry, yeah. So apologies for the delay, but really great to see you all.
Oh yeah. No, and given the size of the community, we both like to put people on the spot, and then also just make them feel very warm and welcome. So actually, maybe Sako, Pavan, Santosh, do you guys want to introduce yourselves to Nick and Eric?
Sure. Hey, I'm Sako. I'm doing DevOps in OpenGov here in Redwood based. So that's before that I was in Nginx working in Engine Mesh project with service meshes. So it's really nice to join to Meshery community, which is actively discovering all the service mesh. That's, I guess, it's the next thing for OpenGov. That's pretty much it.
Oh, also, Sako is a Google Summer of Code participant.
Oh yeah.
So he's
yeah. And meanwhile doing the master degree here in San Jose. So it's nice opportunity also to contribute as a Summer of Code. Yeah. Thank you.
Also, Sako does push-ups with his pinkies. So I'm just. And there's Santosh. And he is muted. You are muted, sir.
Santosh.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was on mute. Hi, I'm Santosh, and I work for IBM. I'm a full stack developer here. I work on multiple applications. So before I worked for Apple, AT&T, and I'm really enjoying working with Meshery so far.
Yeah.
I just realized that I didn't really introduce us.
Yeah,
we just
go in.
So, I apologize. Let me do that properly. Eric and I work for HashiCorp, and at the moment we're working with the console team, and specifically focusing around Console Connect, Service Mesh, so capabilities. So what we do is we work in the developer advocacy team. So that's we're both developer advocates. Where developer advocacy differs from some businesses, we are actually working with engineering. So we're both engineers from a background perspective, and our roles are quite wide. So it's some education. It's also giving product feedback from like user perspective, and also kind of helping to contribute to the products as well. So we have a really wide gamut of stuff, from doing like conference talks, writing blog posts, shipping code,
building integrations.
Yeah, integrations and community integrations specifically as well. Like it's all over.
Yeah, one very relevant to this time, the service mesh interface as well, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. So I worked on the spec for the service mesh interface. Service mesh interface. God, that's a terrible misappropriation of a acronym. And also Eric and I delivered the first sort of the alpha release of the Console Connect integration. We only delivered the sort of the security policy side of things right now, because Console Connect is growing. By the time we release the 1.6 release, which is coming in about 6 weeks, then we will have the sort of the full layer 7 capabilities inside of the configurable from the control plane directly. So we couldn't do any service mesh integration features around that yet, but we'll have that. We'll ship that in probably about 6 weeks or so.
And that's console. That's 1.6 of Console Connect, and we track too many meshes. Remind me, it's is it Envoy that's being used?
That's right. Yeah. So so Console. We were literally discussing that this week. We have kind of confused marketing around the naming. Console Connect was the feature name, but actually the reality is that Console is just the thing. So a feature of Console is that it can act as a service mesh. We see that as kind of like, it's like a higher level abstraction of features on top of the primitives which have always been built into the console system, such as the system catalog, health checking, distributed configuration, and stuff like that. So I apologize on the naming, but yeah, console 1.6, and that's a control plane. We use Envoy as a data plane. And we also have a built-in layer 4 proxy to support Windows as well. But predominantly, Envoy is our preferred data plane component.
But it is actually pluggable. Like it is not like connected directly to Envoy. So
yeah, and that's something that we're quite keen on as well. That one of the advancements we'll be making this year is we are introducing a decoupling of the data plane from the control plane. So the console service mesh will be able to support a wide variety of control planes, as long as that.
Data planes.
Yes, data planes. Gosh, sorry, it's like jet lag.
Yeah.
So. Which I think is going to be really exciting from a community perspective, because folks will be able to build their own data planes, and I think Envoy has the market mind share on that right now, but
not everybody might be using Envoy. So.
Right, and you know how the stuff works. We're fickle in the tech industry, so everything's subject to change.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, there's only like 400 million deployments, or what is it, 400 million websites, I guess, is the running Nginx. There's
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, some of the work that the reasoning behind the work of the sort of the decoupling and presenting a pluggable interface is to enable organizations like Nginx to be able to leverage the console control plane. And we've kind of spoken with Nginx and HA Proxy, and HA have done some previous sort of exploratory stuff around that, and so all of those things ongoing. But that'd be really nice to be able to have that flexibility and freedom, I think.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately, you might use Nginx as your as your data plane for your edge ingress, but you might decide that, just for service to service, you want something just super lightweight, and being able to have a service mesh which supports that as a pluggable kind of architectural model, certainly for larger enterprises, I think is going to be a desirable feature.
It really is. I went. Boy, we're gonna have some fun this afternoon. We have a lot to talk about. So Sako certainly is intimately familiar with Engine Mesh. It was a contributor there, and then just having gone around and explaining Engine Mesh as an Istio deployment that was leveraging, as basically having Istio initially being described as sort of Envoy as the battery included, but displaceable with with a couple of other choices, not that many, but a few other. There's a cost. So the nice thing about SMI, or I expect that I'm putting words in your mouth that I expect maybe you're in agreement with, or the nice thing about something like SMI is that there's a cost in terms of the overhead of trying to be agnostic to whatever that thing is, and in this case, it's the data plane. And you measure the cost in various ways, but hey, if there's a significant community effort around eliminating that cost, and which there is, and which you guys are participating in, then you would expect data plane vendors, if you will, if that's a thing, to come over and readily help advance that. Particularly the part of SMI that I think, just understanding very young initiative and effort, and that of the limited time that we've spent there to make Meshery compatible, I understand that the extensibility bit of the spec is ill-defined. It's a known problem but not figured out.
So the intention behind the extensibility of the spec was to kind of give some leeway to people who are integrating with the spec where there isn't maybe a formal specification element right now. The intention behind the kind of the running process is that what you want to see is those extendable elements actually become formal specifications. But as the spec grows in complexity, as there's more input into the spec, like with all specs, it takes time to formalize those elements. But if you have extensibility elements, it means that you can allow your users to use and use the SMI spec whilst you're working with the sort of governance board for the specification to transform those extensibility elements into sort of formal specifications. And I'm very much looking forward to kind of seeing where the community sort of want to drive SMI and drive it to, because I think the reality, and we're starting to talk about it now, anybody who was around KubeCon was hearing bits and pieces around sort of federation. It's certainly a topic which is becoming more and more prevalent, I think, as larger estates are picking up service mesh communication. But there's a very real possibility that you could have part of your organization who are running Istio and GKE, and some of your organization who are running Linkerd in AWS, and you've got some of your organization who are running Console Connect in Azure or something along those lines. And then being able to have like a formal specification which abstracts all of those different service meshes and produces like a common language, I think is going to be really beneficial for practitioners, rather than, because ultimately we're all doing the same thing. Like, we all go about it in different ways, but the aim is to achieve exactly the same thing. It's network security, reliability, and observability.
You get me excited each time that you sort of talk about those challenges. I'm just to further this briefly, to characterize it more. Do you, and if you want to think on it some more, feel free. But I wonder how you might characterize, or what indicators you might look to say, this is the sized environment, or these are certain common characteristics you'll find in an environment where, in fact, they do have a multi-edge load balancer / data plane, a multi-mesh, deployments. Does that have to be, or does it have to be a 1,000 employee environment? Does it have to be someone who's doing stuff on-prem and off-prem, or like, are there common?
I think there's two predominant use cases where a situation like that originates. The first one is acquisition. So an organization acquires another organization. You don't make acquisition decisions based on the cloud or the technology by which they're operating. So, but ultimately you have to face the technological challenge that there needs to be integration at some point between the two systems. And I think as service mesh matures, we're going to see that it's not just cloud or it's not just Kubernetes. It's potentially different service mesh choices. And the benefit is that if you can federate a service mesh across a number of different vendors and a number of different platforms into a single virtual entity, from an operational security perspective, but also from a sort of a network kind of simplification perspective, having that sort of giant virtual overlay is really beneficial to everyone. The kind of the second pattern, which I think you see in larger organizations, is that departments potentially have the freedom of choice, choose their cloud, and some organized departments might say, hey, we want to use GCP because the data warehousing, TensorFlow, all of that kind of stuff is really incredible. And some orgs might say, hey, well, we want to use AWS because AWS is image recognition and their sort of AI stuff is really great or something. And I think we definitely see that with larger enterprise customers. They are running these huge heterogeneous multi-cloud operations, and it's just down to being able to give people a freedom of choice to choose the best tool for their particular application. I just thought of a third element as well, which I think is probably less prevalent, but there are certainly people who are looking at redundancy across cloud and wanting to leverage multiple clouds to give themselves sort of extreme high availability. I mean, that's a total, it's a real edge, but it does exist. And as I said that, there's probably a fourth point as well. So there's 2 to 4 now, right? But if you kind of consider operating outside of Europe or outside of the West, and you want to do business in somewhere like China where cloud is a lot more controlled, then you can't just create a federated VPC across 2 AWS regions. You're going to be operating some of your stack in probably Alibaba or one of the other sort of government-sanctioned clouds, and you're going to be operating part of your stack in whatever your choice in the West is, like GKE, AWS, Azure, etc. And so with all of those cases, the service mesh is just going to really break down the complexity of trying to get networking traffic between the three sort of between the different environments.
I'm just taking notes. That's fantastic. I agree. Thank you for that, Nick. To get us back to the agenda quickly, actually, a couple of things. I do desire, and I think and Pavan and Sako and Girish and Santosh, speak up if I'm saying something you guys disagree with, but that we desire for the initial interoperability with SMI to take further steps with respect to Meshery. There have been a couple of folks that have suggested, and Nick, maybe we talked about this, I don't recall, but that, and actually it was Prem of the NSM team was one, and then Paul Bauer of Microsoft is another one, but was suggesting Meshery as something of a reference implementation of SMI, and maybe from an adapter perspective that you might make sense, irrespective of what that is. I just pinged Jason Hansen to ask him, hey, when are the the post KubeCon community? Where are we having these discussions? And so, do you? I know it was like Tuesday, Thursdays, or something before, but have those been recast?
Not as yet. I've been meaning to chase that up this week. So Lachlan Everson from Microsoft is going to be taking over the SMI from a sort of an engineering perspective. Lucky also kind of heads up like CNAB and things like that. There needs to be, so on one of the last calls we talked about the need to formalize a sort of governance board and to formalize process around ensuring that people can make suggestions and make contributions to the specification. At the moment, it's a little bit ad hoc. It's kind of GitHub issues and PRs and things, but that's gonna kick off in a more sort of formal state. I believe sort of next week. I just need to blast Lucky and figure out when that's happening.
Very good. That makes a lot. Thanks for that. And then Nick and Eric, full disclaimer that I didn't mention earlier is we do record our community meetings, and so you have to. Yeah, no, I don't mean that. I was actually just poking fun at whoever said hi just now. I was just.
Oh, Danny, yeah.
No, I wasn't. No, all the other things you said, I didn't. I was mostly trying to make a joke about Dan.
Yeah, I know. I got you.
Okay. Very good. Well, so one of the individuals that wasn't able to join us today is CTO of Octarine, which is a security-centric service mesh. They had a booth at KubeCon. I had them on stage at DockerCon for a panel as well. I'm going to give his. He sends his regrets, but did send an update. And I wanted to make sure folks heard it. It was that they've got lots of follow-ups from KubeCon, so they're trying to play catch-up. So that's why they've got a code complete adapter. They need to do tests. Their adapter is slightly different from some of the other adapters. So Octarine as a product is capable of being deployed holistically on-prem, or they also offer a managed control plane. And the way in which they're writing their adapter is to use to interface with the managed control plane. And so part and parcel to that is the notion that they need to set up a public use cluster that just those that want to use Meshery can go and not use a free trial. I don't know quite what they're going to come up with, but just and so so the update is that this is forcing their hand on setting up a public cluster. They've got a functionally complete adapter. Garish, you don't recall, I don't recall Chaim having pushed the first draft of the Octarine adapter yet, though?
I think he probably might have it in his branch, in the repo.
Oh, in his branch, okay.
There's a probability.
Okay, very good. So that's the Octarine update. If we go back to the meeting minutes, get a couple of other things. So actually, one thing, maybe just going out of order here, but Sacco, a couple of your PRs were accepted this week. So
yes, thanks Lee for some reviews and merging it. Appreciate.
Yeah. So maybe I think you probably saw this, but so you helped create and Santosh. I don't know if you guys had you and Santosh kind of tied off on Meshery CTL.
We had a meeting, like I think last week, so we went through overall. I guess we'll sync up also this week.
Okay. There's a couple of smaller items to of Meshery CTL, some edge cases, things like in the other bash script that was being used as the CLI to Meshery. In that bash script, it had done things like prerequisite checks to ensure that Docker Compose was in the environment.
Yeah, sure. I will sync up with Santosh and the Grish also, and just once again go through it. And
Yeah, so we're gonna sync up this weekend.
Okay. Verifying. What is it? The example I was using was the Docker Compose verifying prereqs.
Yeah, and also another thing regarding the shell script for the EKS and the Google Cloud, the way we were doing with service account, I want to also integrate it to the Meshery CTL to do it through it.
Nice.
So not to have the separate shell script for it. That's why it's a bit postponed for the.
Awesome. Okay. No, that'll be great. As a matter of fact, I know that since you had done the work on Minikube compatibility,
Yeah.
do you consider that the short, I think it was like a couple of commands that people needed to run for Minikube?
Just to generate a config file that for the Minikube, and then uploading this file. So we can also do it part of the Meshery CTL, this command
Nice.
So, yeah.
That makes sense, right? Because then Minikube is treated as a platform just as Docker is, just as GKE is, just as...
Okay.
So. Okay. That's great. I know you did some documentation updates as well, but so those are looking good. I'm sensitive to the time that we have. Anything else you want to speak to for the week upcoming? Or?
No, overall, I think after once we'll sync up maybe with you, Krish, and overall Santosh, and yeah, just just what's the best way to do it, and then just go through it, just confirm some stuff. Overall, yeah.
Nice. Okay. We did have Anand, who was also a Google Summer of Code applicant. Popped back up. His final exams are over, and so he's looking to. I think Grish, you were helping him get Meshery running and Kubernetes going, and we need to, Sako. This is actually maybe something for you to consider as well. He's an up-and-coming contributor. Give some thought, maybe if you would, as to where he might be able to jump in. There's, I'll make sure to introduce you to him in Slack. He's pretty excited.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things also we had the preliminary talk gonna be for the TCP and gRPC part, that how we're gonna incorporate these.
Do we have a spec on that? It seems like a good place to start.
So there is not right now the writing, but I was doing a couple refreshment from the stuff we were doing in Engine Mesh and stuff. So yeah, we can start writing. That's some.
Sako to draft a spec. Awesome.
Yep.
A couple of Pavan. Over to you.
Well, I don't have much for this week.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So that means we need to get you loaded up for this next week.
Yeah, but we sync up is Pavan, and I guess you were doing in the Docker, yeah? That's running, you managed to run Istio.
Oh, that's working, right?
Yeah,
it's not in the Docker, it's in Vagrant file.
Yeah, that's.
So Pavan, I guess as you went and confirmed Meshery's compatibility with with
Oracle VirtualBox.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was there any documentation update needed from that?
No.
I think a couple things regarding ingress and all this stuff, it was a bit not straightforward. Because Pavan, maybe we can take a note of this.
Well, like I have. Okay, here is the thing. In VirtualBox, if we install the ECO, like load balancers, like if we install ECO in GCP or in AWS, like we get the load balancer because it has IP addresses over there. But whereas in VirtualBox, we don't have IP addresses automatic assigned, so it won't automatically allocate the IP address in VirtualBox. Or that's the only the thing I see the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could use like kube forward and stuff like and expose the ingress outside.
Expose for only one port is working, but like if the load balancer has a couple of ports, like if there are 5 ports for the particular load balancer, it's like it's not exposing properly.
Pavan, do you want to crack open a GitHub issue and track some documentation update?
Yeah, sure. I'll take care of that.
Do you guys consider that there's any scripting needed there? Like, should we be treating VirtualBox as a platform, or is this just documentation?
It's not. I don't think so. We request scripting, but like we need to find out like how to assign an IP address. Like, so if we assign the IP address, like that would be easy for load balancing.
Because in Minikube you can enable Minikube add-on in ingress, so similar thing to do in the when you install this Docker. So how to enable ingress, basically in VirtualBox.
I think
it's more
uses
documentation.
Nginx. You can have the Nginx ingress controller. I think Minikube just configures that for you automatically.
Yeah, that's for Minikube it's clear, but the way he's doing in VirtualBox, that's how to enable ingress on this IP kind of.
In VirtualBox, we have one master and 2 nodes of Kubernetes cluster.
Pawan, I think the issue is actually to get started with, like, yeah, you're right. Like, so if there is no external load balancer, you will not probably have, or you'll not probably see an external IP assigned to the cluster. But as long as the ports on that cluster are accessible from your host, you should be able to use the IP address of any of the VirtualBox nodes, and you should be able to access it directly. What we can probably do is, like, maybe today or sometime next week or over the weekend, like, I would say ping me, and, like, I can definitely help you actually hit that point.
Yeah, sure, Girish. Thank you.
Very good. Oh boy, we don't have much time left. A couple quick things. Since Eric and Nick are here, Girish, do you want to give a run? I don't know that we've in fact run these guys through the console adapter and kind of what it currently does, and maybe and really kind of a question to them as to what they think maybe it should do next.
Absolutely. I mean, like, you mean, are you talking about a demo of some kind?
Well, or maybe just a verbal description. I think just.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So right before KubeCon, what we did was in a very short time, like, we tried to create an adapter for console. One thing I'm missing there probably is actually a link to the console adapter repo, which I can definitely add up there so that Nick and Eric can actually take a quick look at it. So what we have is pretty functional. Start with, like, what we did is deployment of console using Meshery on a Kubernetes cluster with the sidecar injector enabled or deployed is what we have. Like, so to start with, like, it doesn't do any fancy configurations. Like, what we have is we have a YAML that is generated, I think, from Helm. and we have it, kind of, we have Meshery, you through the adapter, deploy that on our Kubernetes cluster. It works on any Kubernetes cluster. And the next thing we did was that one of the things we were trying or working towards, for KubeCon was actually as close to possible, or as close as possible, an apples to apples comparison. So we've been pretty much using the HTTP bin and the STO's canonical book info app quite a bit. So what we did was, I took that, took their YAMLs, kind of added the console annotations, so those were needed, and I kind of have made it pre-configured in the adapter so that if you load the console adapter, you will be seeing all these three options. As to first, you can actually deploy or remove console along with the sidecar injector. And the next one is the capability to actually deploy the Istio's canonical book info app on console. And the same thing for HTTP bin. So we support both deployment and the removal. So this is kind of how far we got. Now, this did help our team to actually kind of run performance tests. And I'm not sure if you guys were actually there at the presentation at KubeCon. So some of the results we presented on the stage were actually generated by using the console adapter. So our team actually used this adapter to deploy the sample apps and test them. So this is kind of where we are. Like I said, it was probably a few days effort, just to get it going for KubeCon as a start. So now we are at a point where we actually want to take it further. So obviously, your support, would be wonderful here. So one of the things we did for Istio right before our KubeCon demo, when we actually announced our partnership with SMI, was that we added the capability to actually deploy the Istio's SMI adapter, which is basically an operator on a cluster with Istio. So Meshery was able to do that, and right after that, we can actually use any YAML that's SMI compatible, and apply it on the cluster. So in a similar fashion, I'm not super up to date on SMI knowledge. I did know that SMI adapter for Istio existed, but in the last week I've been kind of keeping busy with some other stuff. So I'm not sure if there is an SMI adapter for console today. But if there is one, I think it would be nice if we can actually add support for that in Meshery to do its deployment. So that's kind of one thing that was something we thought would be a good thing to bring up in this meeting. Go ahead, Nick.
Your cuckoo clock's going off there, Gri. Yeah.
We're unmuted.
Sorry, I'm just digging out the link for the console adapter, and I'll paste that into the docs, into the Google Doc as well. But yeah, that's fully available. One of the things that I think we're happy to kind of help and sort of chip in as well around on is the kind of the 1.5 release of console. Introduces the easy configurability of layer 7 observability. In reality, anybody who's using service mesh in production is going to be pretty much want to be using layer 7 if you're running any form of reliability patch. So getting that sort of minor configuration change as well, just to make the more sort of realistic performance from console, because it's actually configured to use layer 4, not just pure TCP. The other thing I think which is interesting, and I apologize, I need to dig in, but is security. So in terms of thinking about the request flow and the sort of the performance of the request flow, is that obviously the authentication step of the service mesh traffic is just MTLS. That's going to add an overhead, but MTLS is a pretty known sort of pretty quick process. A lot of the meshes are going to use sort of secondary authentication or authorization as well for the service mesh traffic, and that's often done as an out of bounds. So step one is obviously you do the MTLS process, the second step is that the proxy is going to say, well, hey, I've received this traffic from this service mesh identity. Is it actually allowed to make a communication? And then it'll make an outbound call to the control plane to be able to validate that. And the different implementations on that validation can have a huge bearing on the performance of the service mesh. Whether that is cached, whether the connections are pooled, and the whole 9 yards there. So that would be really neat to have configured up as well in sort of the console demo. And SMI, I think, is a great tool to be able to do those things, because I know the Istio adapter, they're currently looking at putting the policy validation, so the traffic access control section of the spec in there, and for the Meshery adapter for Meshery to be able to actually configure the various SMI specs across multiple meshes could be really dope. And I'm happy to help out with all of those things.
Oh man,
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great thing. Apart from that, so that's a fantastic start. And you actually give out another point, which is fantastic. One other point, we were thinking about during another site discussion, was actually maybe a capability to support deployment of the console sidecars on VMs, or something along those lines would actually be kind of another neat thing, to just say that, hey, you know what, that's kind of flexing console's capability, that, hey, it's not just bound to Kubernetes, you can actually stretch it beyond. So that'll be a kind of nice thing.
Yeah, and that's possible right now, as long as the traffic is outbound from Kubernetes. Technically you could do it for a virtual machine inbound into Kubernetes. Realistically, you probably wouldn't, because of the complexities with network communication.
Right. Absolutely.
Configuration.
Yeah, only on GKE it would be simple, because they allocate IP addresses for
right.
Gotcha.
But we're introducing a feature in 1.6, which is coming in 6 weeks, called gateways. And what a gateway will allow you to do is basically NAT traversal between segments inside of a service mesh. So it'll mean that you can have secure communication between a virtual machine group and a Kubernetes cluster, or two Kubernetes clusters, without having to worry about creating flat networks or NAT or anything like that. The gateway will forward the request. Where that's interesting for Meshery as well is the gateway, because it's adding a hop, and okay, we're going to be doing TLS transparent proxying. It's still going to add a hop, and there's a potential performance loss there as well. So there's something interesting there, I think, and ultimately, as I was saying earlier, I think the end goal is that most service meshes are going to support this sort of gateway model, and realistically, I might be connecting Console Connect on a virtual machine to Istio, and some really interesting sort of use cases for the future in Meshery as well down that route.
Gotcha. Excellent. That's fantastic.
yeah, that is. I think I've captured a number of those. Those are really good. And actually, Nick, edification for the folks here. So you were talking about console in the near term supporting gateway to gateway, or sort of cluster to cluster, or service mesh instance to service mesh instance, gateway to gateway connectivity between them, and that NAT being supported such that the IP addresses used between those two environments could be overlapping, and that would be fine, because you do the the gateways would do this translation. And then you said transparent TLS.
Yeah, that's right. So what we don't want to do, from a security perspective, if you just had like a gateway, so you need to understand what the destination is going to be, or what the intended destination is. There's a number of ways of doing that. The most common way, if you're just dealing with standard non-encrypted traffic, is to look at the host header. The problem with the host header in with SSL is that header is obviously encrypted. So to get at the host header, what we would have to do is decrypt the traffic, and then we'd have to re-encrypt it. We obviously don't want to do that because it requires the gateway to have the ability to inspect traffic, which is a risk. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the headers inside of the TLS protocol, and we're going to encode the destination into there. So the gateway is just going to peek at that, and then it can just literally forward on the raw packets to the destination, and that's going to be kind of neat, because as long as you've got like a federated trust across multiple service meshes, the gateways aren't a weak point. They don't need to decrypt and re-encrypt traffic to a destination. You'll have that pure transparent forwarding. Services, again, wouldn't even need to be aware that they're getting their traffic forwarded to another cluster or another entity. As far as they're concerned, they're still talking local host.
Yeah.
The difference is that the endpoints which are configured inside of the data plane would be a gateway as opposed to a physical service address, and then the gateway would say, oh, okay, it will then do the final sort of routing and balancing to the destination. So it's all a little bit up in the air in terms of like how that spec pans out, and we've got a lot of research around it. We are cutting code at the moment around it, and it'd be it's probably one of those things that's easier to show than describe. And once we get a little bit more sort of formalized architectural plans and stuff, but I believe it will be a pattern which is common across a lot of meshes. And I know Istio have already started to look and think about federation and. But the ultimate, I think, is integration as well as federation.
Looks like Linkadee's looks like transparent TLS might be part of their approach as well. And I guess I asked in part to make sure that I wasn't confusing service name indicators, or like SNI, with these two things as being distinct.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to use the SNI header, so part of the sort of the TLS spec, but being able to do that, because obviously that's sent. Well, we won't be encrypting those. That might be something that we look at a little later date. I know, but the destination the destination service name would be encoded into the SNI header, and that's what gives the gateway the ability to be able to successfully forward it without having to decrypt the traffic. So you're literally getting point-to-point uninterrupted MTLS connection between a service in one cluster and a service in another cluster, which is going to be real exciting, I think.
Well, so Girish, I know we've just got 5 minutes left. I'd seen some of the. Do you have a Meshery up, and maybe can you just show folks briefly some of the enhancements that are there, or is it not? Are we not quite there yet?
I can sure try to show whatever I have here. Of course, I've broken some pieces of it because I was doing some development, but I do have something up and running. Let me see if I can quickly share my screen. Now, while I'm doing that, I have this section which we created a discussion, software items. We can, people can actually read through it and feel free to actually kind of nominate their names if they're interested in participating. So these are some of the things like we have planned for Meshery. I mean, these are like not long-term stuff, but these are like sort of short-term enhancements to Meshery. So if the folks on the call are interested, like, feel free to actually put your name right next to it. And again, if you have any questions, we can definitely talk about it. Go from there. Okay, all right. So I'm going to try to show some stuff. Now I don't probably have a cluster to show, but I can show the interface of Meshery. Just give me 1 second. Okay. All right. So if you guys are seeing my screen, I'm doing some developments. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So this is actually one of the pieces that I'm working on now, which is moving away from using Grafana charts. Like earlier, Meshery had a good integration with Grafana. Like so here's a section, for example. So I'm connected to Grafana using this interface, and right after the connection, it'll actually pull all the boards, and for every board, it'll actually then quickly show the panels. And from here, you can actually pick and choose, like the ones we need, or you can just select everything. Like, for example, here I'm working with one panel because I'm working on a specific use case. So here, like earlier, it used to be like all the iframes embedded here on the page, like from Grafana, but now we are gradually trying to move away from it. So here I'm working on a POC with Chart.js. Fundamentally, like extracting all the metadata from Grafana and trying to pull the data and present it as a Chart.js chart. Eventually we'll actually probably go directly to Prometheus. Now this has two benefits. One, capability to actually kind of provide a responsive interface, because when iframes come into the game, there's always a mess. So this will actually provide a responsive interface. That's the first thing, or that's like the shortest or the simplest advantage. The other one is that we are going to actually provide capabilities in Meshery, like as part of our performance section, to actually showcase the host, or fundamentally the right word there is the infrastructure metrics. For example, so here is actually the performance section. So right now, we have capability to actually allow the end user to run some load tests from here. Now you can see at the bottom, once Grafana is integrated, you will actually start seeing the right charts. So this is actually a Grafana chart, for example, but that the one on the other page was not. So this is just an example. So when a person is running a load test, they can see the metrics from Grafana, but all these have been pretty specific to Istio. Like you can see the Istio gallery dashboard, but I mean we're not very tightly coupled with Istio's Grafana. It can be any Grafana, but So the thought here is to actually have capability to also present the server-side metrics, irrespective of Grafana existing or not, but there will be a dependence on Prometheus. So that's actually the eventual direction for bringing in the support for working with Chart.js. So this is one of the things, for the folks who haven't seen this interface. So this is the load testing interface. We have 20 seconds. So I'm just going to showcase the results section. So the results section is actually so every time a load test is run, we process the results along with the charts. So people can actually compare them using different ways of comparison. So this is one interface. Again, you can select as many charts you want and use it for comparison. So and it's the results are paginated, etc. Sorting, paging, searching is all on this page. The other one is actually the playground interface, or the playground. You have to configure it with an adapter. I don't have an adapter running at the moment. In the next, sorry, it's already passed. So essentially, this interface takes a kubeconfig file. Right after that, you have to go to the next interface and connect the adapters. So this one is already listing 2 known adapters, so you can connect to it. Once they are connected, they'll show up here on the right. And the Grafana integration is optional. That's the reason why you don't see a star. In my case, I already have an integration with Grafana. So once an adapter is connected, you will actually see this page populated with the operations supported for that adapter. And from then, you can actually interact with the service mesh using the adapter from the screen. Given the time, I'm actually cutting short. But if you guys want to hang around for a bit longer, I can definitely showcase connecting it.
Let me reiterate part of the goal. So initially, so a number of people have investments into Grafana, or a number of the service meshes. You find some things that are fairly common. Nick, you called out a couple earlier, but some of those are exposure of metrics through Prometheus, literally, or at least in a Prometheus exposition format. And so too, do you find many of the meshes supporting maybe pre-configured dashboards in Grafana, or a number of people that are running these service meshes being comfortable with Grafana and having it in their environment. And so the ability for this performance benchmarking tool to leverage those pre-existing investments makes a lot of sense rather than have to recreate them. Part of the challenge, though, of really trying to say, hey, holistically, let's measure some throughput, let's measure some latency, let's also measure the impact on the node, the memory, the CPUs, and putting them into the same time window and potentially on the same chart, even though maybe not, just given the axes are slightly different, but putting them as close together as possible in the same with the same color codes, like the cognitive difference between the Grafana panels and the Chart.js ones that we're using, hard for people to interpret. And so it's not that Meshery maybe shouldn't support the ingestion of Grafana dashboards, which are really not that far off from Prometheus queries. Maybe to just grease the wheels and support ingest of those types of dashboards, but probably go directly to Prometheus so that a deployment of Grafana isn't required, which it sort of is today, to get some of those node level metrics.
So the other thing, and I just put a quick note on there, but this is maybe something as a sort of a feature thing to think about as well, is the SMI spec has a concept called traffic metrics. That if that spec right now does not meet the sort of the Meshery requirements, it could certainly be extended, because what that would enable you to do is, if you had specific adapter, you would interact with the traffic metrics API. The traffic metrics API is going to be the abstraction to the underlying metric itself. But it would allow you, for example, if somebody wasn't using Prometheus, they might be using InfluxDB or Datadog or like some vendors' cloud metrics. You get a nice clean abstraction with Meshery there as well. Again, it's just an idea. It's
yeah, no.
The direction of that's dope.
Yeah. Well, Nick, thanks for that. As a matter of fact, I think we've gotten more suggestions out of this call than maybe the last 3 combined. So this is great. With that, I understand that we're at the top of the hour. Santosh, I understand we didn't, and Pavan didn't get to spend a lot of time on things that you guys will be working on forthcoming. If let's do, though, find some one-on-one or one-on-two or what have you time before next community meeting. There is a list of kind of Meshery to-do items that's laid out in bullet points. One of those is that Kinvolk had been commissioned by Buoyant to produce some performance tests, and we spent good friends with Kinvolk, and they were giving some compelling insight as to what coordinated omission is in terms of WRK2, and how it as a load balancer a load generator is accounting for some fanciness with respect to measuring latency, and how we're using Fort.io right now, but maybe we should partner up and they'd help put in WRK2. There's some things we need to make sure we kind of a mental note, and for the community here, for us to reach out, invite them to the call, look at either supporting Fort.io and WRK2, or maybe just displacing Fort.io with WRK2, getting a blog post up about coordinated omission and what that concept is. But the other reason why I'm looking over these bullet points is to say, when we met with Paul Bowers of Microsoft this last Friday, his ask was to see a bit more of a Meshery roadmap, and I don't think he in part wanted to influence it, which is great because he's taking Meshery to customers and trying to help them evaluate as they're going through evaluations of meshes, and he's helping them deploy. Wonderful. So hopefully they'll provide a great set of feedback. But he also, I had mentioned to him that just how much time I have spent over the last 3 years within the CNCF, how we're about to go off and establish a networking or reincarnate the networking working group into a new SIG in the CNCF, and within there may push Meshery to the CNCF sandbox, which I think made him feel warm and fuzzy. And but we need to make some of those statements publicly, and so there, I said it on the recording. So Paul said he watches some of these, so as long as he pays attention for an hour and 6 minutes, he'll have heard it again. With that, we're slightly over, guys. I just thanks so much for spending this time. Sako, you caught the where we were. I was kind of doing this on stage last week. Thank you very much.
Sure.
To you guys. So. With that, maybe does anyone have anything else? If not, let's wrap up and we'll go have some barbecue. Is what we'll do.
Lee, do you want to do one-on-one after this call? I can stay online.
Yeah, I really do. Girish may have to take you up on the offer. I'm gonna make sure that both Nick and Eric have had barbecue in their bellies in their time here. Otherwise, we'll have to get a rope and hang them out back. So I really want to. But I've got to. So Girish, can you hang out with Santosh for a little bit?
Sounds good.
Okay. Gentlemen.
I will also hang out for a bit. I guess Santosh and Girish.
Yeah.
We can have initial. Let's discuss.
Yeah. You guys will keep the party going. Okay, very good. Talk to you guys very shortly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
It is.